The ZR1 has one of the most recognizable supercharged sounds. That rising whine comes from the supercharger compressing air before it reaches the engine. The ZR1 sound is a combination of brute force and mechanical noise. Its supercharger is forcing huge amounts of air into the V8, and as its internal components spin faster, they produce that distinctive high-frequency whine. The GT500 has a very different personality. Its supercharger produces that sharp mechanical whine, but underneath it, you're also hearing a powerful V8 exhaust note. As the supercharger speed increases, its whine rises in pitch, so when you hear that combination of a deep V8 roar and a high-pitched scream, you're hearing two completely different parts of the engine making noise at the same time.
It's the supercharger. The Hellcat uses a massive 2.4-litre twin-screw supercharger, and when the engine starts demanding more air, those internal rotors spin incredibly fast. That creates the famous high-pitched whine you hear rising with the RPM. The harder you push the throttle, the faster the supercharger spins, and the louder that mechanical scream becomes.
The F-Type R has one of the most recognizable supercharged sounds. That rising whine comes from the supercharger compressing air before it reaches the engine.
But Jaguar didn't make this car quiet.
The supercharger's mechanical scream sits on top of an extremely aggressive V8 exhaust, creating that combination of whine, growl, and roar. It's almost like the engine is making two different sounds at once. The E55 AMG has an unmistakable mechanical sound. Its supercharger is belt-driven directly by the engine, so its speed is closely tied to engine RPM. As the engine revs higher, the supercharger spins faster. That's what creates that rising mechanical whine you hear during acceleration, and because the engine is a large V8, the supercharger's scream is backed by a deep muscular exhaust note. This one sounds much more subtle. Audi's supercharged 3.0-litre V6 uses a different type of supercharger, giving it a smoother, higher-pitched mechanical sound. You can hear the supercharger working as the engine builds RPM, but it doesn't have the enormous scream of something like a Hellcat. Instead, you get a cleaner combination of V6 exhaust and supercharger whine. Now, listen to how different a smaller engine can sound. The Exige uses a supercharged 4-cylinder engine, so instead of the deep rumble of a big V8, you get a much lighter and higher-pitched engine note. The supercharger adds its own mechanical whine on top, and because the engine is small and revs quickly, that sound can rise in pitch extremely fast. The ZR1 sound is a combination of brute force and mechanical noise. Its supercharger is forcing huge amounts of air into the V8, and as its internal components spin faster, they produce that distinctive high-frequency whine. But the supercharger isn't the only thing you hear. The deep rumble comes from the V8 itself, while the sharper scream sitting on top of it comes from the forced induction system. The CTS-V has that classic American supercharged V8 sound. The deep rumble comes from the V8, but listen closely and you'll hear a sharp mechanical whine rising above it. That's the supercharger spinning faster as the engine demands more air. The result is a sound that's both aggressive and mechanical, deep down low with that unmistakable scream on top. Don't let the size fool you. Older Mini Cooper S models used a supercharged 4-cylinder, and that smaller engine creates a completely different sound. Instead of a deep V8 rumble, you get a much higher pitched engine note, then the supercharger adds its own mechanical whine on top. The result is a small engine with a surprisingly loud and distinctive scream. Now, the supercharger isn't just making power, it's also creating a mechanical signature that can completely change the way an engine sounds. From the Hellcat's violent scream to the SVR's deep V8 thunder, every setup has its own personality, and sometimes you can identify the car before you even see it, just by listening. And that's just how far we could go. But before we round up, let me know in the comments which of these supercharged cars got your vote. And finally,
Subscribe